As the political landscape in the United States continues to evolve under President Donald Trump's administration, progressive activists are mobilizing in unprecedented ways to resist what they describe as an aggressive dismantling of the federal government. With a renewed sense of urgency, these activists are not just rallying against Trump but are also turning their frustrations toward congressional Democrats, urging them to adopt more combative strategies reminiscent of those used by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell during his tenure as a Republican leader. The call to action comes in the wake of what many on the left view as a lackluster response from Democratic lawmakers to Trump's sweeping changes, which have included mass firings and the shuttering of key government agencies. Frustration has boiled over into protests aimed at influential Democrats such as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, with activists demanding a more proactive stance against Trump's policies. Jody Jacobson, a reproductive rights advocate, expressed her discontent, stating they're more inclined to listen to their donors or their consultants than their constituents. Her comments reflect a growing sentiment among progressives who feel that their elected representatives are not adequately addressing their concerns. Jacobson has mobilized her supporters on the social media platform Blue Sky, calling for Democratic incumbents to be held accountable in the upcoming primaries. At a recent rally outside Schumer's home in New York, public school teacher James Brophy echoed this discontent, asserting they're doing almost nothing, saying almost nothing. Brophy is part of Indivisible BK, a grassroots organization that has been active since Trump's first term, advocating for a more assertive Democratic strategy in Congress. The group, along with the New York City chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, is championing the use of procedural tactics to slow down or block Trump's agenda, drawing inspiration from McConnell's obstructive methods. Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible, articulated this strategy, stating, "If you're in the minority, you got to use the tools of the minority." He urged Senate Democrats to adopt a mindset similar to that of McConnell, who was known for his unyielding opposition to Democratic initiatives during Obama's presidency. Levin's call to action underscores a growing frustration among progressives that the current Democratic leadership is not fully utilizing their available tools to counteract Trump's policies. Despite the mounting pressure from constituents, Schumer has maintained that the key to blocking Trump's proposals lies within the House of Representatives, where a narrow Republican majority exists. He argues that convincing swing district Republicans to break ranks is essential for effective opposition. However, many activists remain unconvinced, viewing this strategy as overly cautious in light of the aggressive tactics employed by the Trump administration. The Democrats' perceived indecisiveness has led to criticisms from within their own ranks. Jeffries, for instance, expressed confusion about the party's leverage in negotiations, highlighting the difficulty of opposing a Republican-controlled government. This sentiment was echoed in the aftermath of Trump's recent joint address to Congress, where the disjointed Democratic response, including protests and scattered heckling, drew mockery from Republican leaders who characterized the party as flailing. Activists are advocating for a shift in tactics, suggesting that Democrats employ procedural maneuvers to delay or obstruct legislation, thereby buying time before the midterm elections. Suggestions include calling for quorum votes and denying unanimous consent, strategies that could significantly slow down the legislative process and force Republicans to expend more resources on their agenda. As the March 14 deadline for a government funding resolution approaches, tensions are rising. Liberals see an opportunity to leverage the budget negotiations to reclaim some power from the Trump administration. There is a growing consensus among progressive activists that the Democrats should not shy away from drastic measures, with some advocating for a government shutdown as a means to negotiate more favorable terms for funding. In the face of these challenges, some Democrats are beginning to vocalize their demands, albeit cautiously. The party must now navigate the complex dynamics of a divided Congress while responding to widespread calls for a more assertive stance against Trump's policies. As we look forward, the question remains, will the Democratic Party heed the call from its progressive base for a more combative approach? The upcoming midterm elections may serve as a litmus test for the party's direction as activists and constituents alike demand accountability and action in the face of an administration that shows no signs of relenting. The landscape is shifting, and how Democrats respond in the coming months could redefine their political future. In a political landscape marked by stark divisions and intense loyalty, the question of accountability within party lines has become increasingly contentious. Dace Potas, a conservative opinion columnist for USA Today, recently sparked a dialogue on this very issue, questioning why criticism of Donald Trump and the Republican Party is often met with backlash from fellow conservatives. Potas argues that as a staunch conservative, he believes it is essential to hold party leaders accountable to foster a stronger, more principled GOP. Potas reveals that he receives a steady stream of emails accusing him of being a Republican in name only, rhino, or even a leftist infiltrator. These accusations, he contends, miss the mark regarding his motivations. "I believe it's more important to be critical of your party than it is to cover up deficiencies," he states, emphasizing the responsibility conservatives have to address the shortcomings of their leadership, particularly under Trump's administration. He points out that the Trump era has seen a departure from the Republican Party's foundational principles, such as limited government and free markets. Instead, Potas argues the party now embraces policies that contradict these ideals, including tariff expansions and a consolidation of power that undermines checks and balances. He notes the Trump administration lacks the moral foundation and conservative principles to truly represent a conservative outlook on American politics, underscoring a troubling shift within the GOP. This critique extends to the media landscape as well, where Potas claims that many conservative outlets, including Fox News, provide insufficient scrutiny of Republican leaders. He argues that by shielding politicians from criticism, conservative media restricts the flow of vital information to voters, leading to a less informed electorate. This, he believes, is detrimental to the party's health in the long run. Holding conservatives to the proper standards is part of making conservatism stronger, he asserts, advocating for a culture that encourages rigorous debate and accountability. Potas traces the moral decline of the Republican Party back to its acceptance of Trump as the presidential nominee in 2016. He recalls that the rationale for supporting Trump was often based on the belief that he was the lesser of two evils. However, this compromise has led to a broader acceptance of anti-conservative actions and rhetoric. His removal from the GOP is more important than winning any election, Potas declares, suggesting that the integrity of the party should take precedence over short-term electoral gains. As the Republican Party grapples with its identity, Potas remains steadfast in his belief that true conservatism must be rooted in steadfast principles rather than mere electoral success. He acknowledges the challenges of advocating for a return to core values in a climate that prioritizes winning at all costs, yet he persists in his call for a more principled GOP. "I know this is an unrealistic ask," he admits, but he remains hopeful that a commitment to accountability can pave the way for a more sustainable and principled future for conservatism, in a time when political allegiances are tested. Potas's reflections serve as a reminder of the importance of critical discourse within any party. As we look ahead, the challenge for conservatives will be to reconcile their ideological commitments with the realities of leadership, ensuring that the Republican Party can navigate the complexities of modern governance while remaining true to its foundational principles. The path forward may be fraught with difficulties, but it is through open dialogue and accountability that a more resilient and principled GOP can emerge. In a significant step towards establishing a robust regulatory framework for stablecoins, U.S. Senators Bill Hagerty, Republican, Tennessee; Tim Scott, RSC; Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat, New York; Cynthia Lummis, Republican, Wyoming; and Angela Brooks, Democrat, Maryland, have reintroduced an updated version of the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Genius Act. The legislation, which aims to clarify the status of payment stablecoins, is set to be voted on by the Senate Banking Committee this Thursday. The Genius Act emerges from extensive consultations with stakeholders across the industry, academia, and government, reflecting a bipartisan commitment to fostering innovation while ensuring consumer protection. From enhancing transaction efficiency to driving demand for U.S. Treasuries, the potential benefits of strong stablecoin innovation are immense, Senator Hagerty stated, emphasizing the need for a regulatory environment that promotes growth. He expressed optimism about collaborating with the House Financial Services Committee to advance the bill to the President's desk for approval. Chairman Scott echoed this sentiment, asserting that the bipartisan nature of the legislation signifies Congress's intent to provide clarity for the digital assets industry, including stablecoins. He noted that stablecoins not only facilitate faster and cheaper transactions but also have the potential to enhance financial inclusion across the nation. This legislation will ensure the industry can innovate and grow here in the United States while promoting the U.S. dollar's global position, he added. The updated Genius Act includes crucial provisions aimed at bolstering consumer protections and establishing clear pathways for both state and national regulation of stablecoin issuers. Senator Gillibrand highlighted the significance of the bill, stating this bill represents a true bipartisan effort, and I want to thank all our partners for their willingness to seek and find common ground. Passing clear and sensible stablecoin legislation is essential to our country's future. In addition to regulatory clarity, the Genius Act outlines the definition of a payment stablecoin, establishes procedures for licensing, and implements reserve requirements tailored to the size of issuers. Notably, issuers of more than $10 billion will be subject to the Federal Reserve's regulatory framework, while smaller issuers may opt for state regulation, fostering a flexible approach to governance in this rapidly evolving sector. Senator Lummis emphasized that creating a bipartisan regulatory framework is vital for maintaining U.S. dollar dominance in the global economy. She remarked, Senator Hagerty and my bill secures stablecoin issuers' ability to choose between state and national charters and takes a decisive step toward cementing America's leadership in the digital asset economy. As the Senate Banking Committee prepares to vote on the Genius Act, the implications of this legislation could be far-reaching. By establishing clear guidelines for stablecoins, the U.S. could bolster its position in the global crypto landscape, drive innovation, and enhance financial inclusion. The bipartisan support behind the bill signals a growing recognition of the importance of digital assets in the modern economy, setting the stage for future developments in the regulatory landscape surrounding cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. As discussions continue and the legislative process unfolds, stakeholders across the financial and tech sectors will be closely monitoring the progress of the Genius Act, which could redefine the landscape for stablecoins and potentially pave the way for more comprehensive regulations on digital currencies in the United States. As the political landscape in the United States shifts following the recent elections, House Republicans are gearing up for significant legislative action, particularly in the realm of education. With the GOP now controlling both the White House and Congress, the party has prioritized a range of reforms aimed at reshaping the nation's educational framework. Central to this effort is Congressman Tim Walberg, who has recently stepped into the role of chairman of the Education and Workforce Committee. In an interview, Walberg articulated his vision for education reform, emphasizing the need to realign educational priorities with workforce demands. Education and workforce is the key to all that America is meant to be, he stated. He believes that schools have strayed from their foundational purpose, preparing students for employment. According to Walberg, there has been an overreach of political agendas within educational institutions, which he aims to counteract by empowering parents and promoting alternative paths like trade schools and apprenticeships. Walberg identified several pressing challenges facing the education sector, particularly the burden of student debt. He expressed concern that many students graduate with degrees that do not translate into viable job opportunities, leaving them with crippling financial obligations. We need to work together to advance meaningful reforms that set our youth up for success, he said, highlighting the College Cost Reduction Act (CCRA) as a legislative initiative designed to alleviate some of the financial strain on students while holding educational institutions accountable for their graduate success. Looking forward, Walberg's agenda includes a strong emphasis on school choice. He stated parents know the needs of their children far better than the federal government advocating for policies that give families more educational options. The Parents' Bill of Rights Act, which passed in the House last Congress but stalled in the Senate, is expected to be reintroduced, signaling a renewed push for parental involvement in educational decisions. The committee's focus extends to the oversight of federal education programs, particularly in light of the previous administration's policies. Wahlberg expressed his intention to streamline the Department of Education, stating, "We've already seen some wins in this area," referencing recent reversals of regulations imposed under the Biden administration that he deemed excessive. In the wake of growing concerns about diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI initiatives in education, Wahlberg has been vocal about returning to merit-based systems. He criticized these programs for creating division rather than fostering individual growth, asserting that the committee will actively work to dismantle policies that detract from educational meritocracy. Moreover, as issues of anti-Semitism on college campuses have gained prominence, Wahlberg indicated that the committee will maintain a rigorous posture on this front. He emphasized the need for accountability among educational institutions, saying, "We will continue to have a strong posture on this topic," underscoring the committee's commitment to protecting students from hate and discrimination. As the 2025 congressional session unfolds, Wahlberg's leadership will likely shape the future of educational policy in the United States. With a Republican majority now in control, the committee's initiatives could significantly alter the landscape of American education, focusing on accountability, choice, and real-world applicability of educational programs. Observers will be keen to see how effectively these reforms are implemented and whether they will garner bipartisan support in a politically divided landscape. As Wahlberg aims to address the systemic issues plaguing education, the coming months will be crucial in determining the trajectory of these ambitious goals and their impact on future generations. In a pivotal moment for the U.S. judiciary, the Supreme Court appears to be adopting a cautious approach as it navigates the complexities surrounding former President Donald Trump's ambitious agenda. The court's recent decisions reflect a commitment to procedural integrity rather than unequivocal support for the administration's more controversial maneuvers. In just a few succinct rulings, the Supreme Court has addressed key issues that highlight the tension between executive power and judicial oversight. Notably, the court rejected the Trump administration's attempt to assert the immediate authority to dismiss the head of a governmental watchdog office. Additionally, it has put a brake on efforts to halt the disbursement of nearly $2 billion in foreign aid, illustrating a reluctance to allow executive overreach without due process. These initial decisions may not significantly impede Trump's broader agenda, but they signal the court's intent to maintain a balance of power at a time when the Republican-controlled Congress has largely been supportive or silent. Jack Goldsmith, a former Justice Department official, noted that the court's strategy of taking small, deliberate steps allows it to achieve interim outcomes without prematurely revealing its stance on the more profound legal questions at stake. As Trump's presidency unfolds, marked by an unprecedented expansion of executive authority, the Supreme Court is confronted with cases that challenge long-established legal precedents. Among them is Trump's controversial push to end birthright citizenship, a move that would overturn over a century of legal understanding under the 14th Amendment. Already more than 100 lawsuits have emerged challenging this directive, with lower courts frequently stalling the administration's plans. The current dynamics have led to a polarized atmosphere where Trump's supporters, including high-profile allies like Elon Musk, have publicly criticized the judiciary for impeding progress. This rhetoric has prompted the Federal Judges Association to issue a rare statement denouncing disinformation that could erode public trust in the judicial system. Despite Trump's assertions of respect for judicial rulings, some within his circle have suggested that the administration might defy court orders, raising the specter of a constitutional crisis. Legal experts are closely watching how the Supreme Court will engage with the growing number of challenges to the executive branch's actions. Kent Greenfield, a law professor, remarked that the court seems to be emphasizing the importance of adhering to established legal processes amidst fears expressed by many scholars of a looming constitutional crisis. as the Supreme Court's involvement deepens. It remains to be seen how it will ultimately shape the balance of power between the presidency and the judiciary. The justices are likely to face additional high-stakes cases in the near future that could redefine the limits of executive authority, particularly concerning federal employment laws and the allocation of federal funds. Looking ahead, the court's incremental approach may serve as a stabilizing force within the U.S. legal landscape as it strives to uphold the principles of judicial review in an increasingly contentious political environment. As more lawsuits ascend to the Supreme Court, the implications of its decisions will resonate far beyond the immediate outcomes, potentially influencing the trajectory of American governance in the years to come.